Hello, welcome to June 5th, 2023. My name is Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation video. This is an exercise that I do each and every morning, shortly after waking up. It's now 4:42 a.m. I do this to do three things. One, to remember my life objectives and principles, the ones that are outlined in my book, Going Alone. These are the things that I'm striving for to live a good life, a meaningful life, a purpose-filled life in a universe without apparent meaning. And the second thing is to think about the last 24 hours, namely any challenges or opportunities of note that I encountered that where I had a chance to utilize the aforementioned principles and objectives towards the objectives. And then three, I finish this exercise by thinking about the coming day and forecasting where I might have the same opportunities to use the principles towards the objectives. Let's begin. First, last night and yesterday. Slept all right last night. I was in bed on time. I woke up. It's getting a little warmer at night, so I woke up once, I remember, for just to throw off the sheets. But I don't feel too rested. I mean, I feel all right. It's a Monday, so there's that. But altogether, I think I'm in pretty good shape. Yesterday, just a fun day yesterday with my wife. We didn't have any chores to do. Our shopping was all done, so we pretty much just, I did all kinds of fun things and lots of reading, and we went out and had a really nice lunch together and took the dogs for a real nice walk. It was a good day. Can't say that there were any particular challenges or opportunities that stood out. Let's do the good life. I did something yesterday that was fun. I actually read from the book to help align and make sure I wasn't missing anything in particular. So let's open the chapter to the book to the chapter, The Good Life. Now the 7 objectives, I've got those down. That's not a problem, but I'll just read them anyway. The objectives are the things that I'm striving for, the way that I want to live my life. Number 1 is to be always ready to die, to have everything in a settled state, my affairs, my relationships, and my life's purpose. I've got a dog at my side here. I have to sit sideways. Number 2, my second objective is to make good and effective use of time. I feel like I'm reading a bedtime story. Make good and effective use of my time and resources so that I'm not wasting time. And here in the book, I have a whole list of things that I think would be good things to be caught doing when I die. Number 3 is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. That's this good life creed that I'm reciting now. Number 4 is to cultivate good emotional reactions, just to become someone who reacts well, doesn't fly off the handle, and doesn't lose control. Basically, maintains control and can then keep my equilibrium and balance in good times and rough, bad times too. Number 5 is to perform good actions, just to do good things throughout the day. Number 6 is to recognize my true limits and true opportunities so that I'm applying myself to things that I can actually achieve, and I'm less worried about things that are beyond me. And then number 7 is to do just one thing at a time and do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully in a measured manner. Now my 34 principles are: number 1, the principle of war, to always be fighting against anything that I already believe is true or anything that comes to me that seems a candidate for truth, because I want to size it up and run it through its paces before I accept it as such. 2, the principle of reason, which is the tool that I use in the aforementioned war. The sub-principles here are honesty, objectivity, doubt, and humiliation. I want to be honest with myself and others. Objective in my worldview, looking at things from multiple angles and as clearly as possible. I want to be a skeptic, and I want to be ready to embrace the humiliation of discovering when I'm wrong. The next 2 go together. The homunculus is one principle, and then the anchor hold is another principle. Taken together, these are the suggestion that 1, there is no such thing as a soul, and 2, my consciousness is going to die with me because it's trapped inside of me. This rallies the mind towards living well and better now in the here and now, and not mortgaging our life for some future paradise or better time when we'll have oversight and protection by some deity or within some heaven. I don't think any of that exists, so I have to do my best now. Those two principles help me to do that. Number 5 is the home of good and evil. Right and wrong are mere opinions, subjective opinions at their base core. And it's important for me to work to identify good reasons for the things that I think are good and bad, and to live in a way that I'm pursuing the things that are good. The good things, of course, are the things that lead to virtue, which comes up over and over in this creed. Virtue is nothing more than that which contributes to the improvement of the well-being of thinking creatures. That's a mouthful, but improving well-being versus taking away from well-being. That's all these things really are. Good and evil are, right and wrong are those ends. Good and evil are the deliberate pursuit of those ends in either direction. I like the way that came out. Number 6 is the principle of purpose. My purpose are 3. 1, to be a good husband and father. 2, to be a virtuous man in accordance with the aforementioned definition of virtue. 3 is to fulfill whatever personal mission I take on in life, which for me is the sharing of the Good Life Creed and the story of going alone. The atomic principle is next, and the sub-principle, which has the sub-principles of dissolution and emergence. Dissolution and emergence. We dissolve away and we come back. One generation dies and falls to pieces, and the next generation comes together. It's this cycle that goes on and on. And it's good to remember that. And to remember that I too am but molecules and atoms. Next comes the principle of nature. Everything has some particular nature, and it's good to recognize what that is so that we can live in better accord with how the universe really operates and is. Then comes the pirate ride. Free will is an illusion. I don't think it's real. I think that the universe has so much to say about our every choice. We simply feel like we're operating it. We're like a child at the, it's not a good analogy, you shouldn't use that, Kurt, because it implies some parent at the wheel. The image that I use, and it's in the book, there's a picture in the book somewhere in here of a boy on a bus, hurtling, tossing about on a sea. And what I mean by that image is that the, is it here? No, somewhere in here. The boy is a passenger. That's what we are, and we are tossed around by the machinations of the universe at large, seeming like we're in control, but not really. And I can't prove that. I hold this principle on faith, and I do dearly believe it's true, although I can't quite convince myself of that reality such that it becomes manifest in my behavior, or my action, or my belief even though I'm trying to convince myself of such. It's the messiest part of this creed, the pirate ride is. And there's a reason I describe it as a pirate ride. I think about it, I came up with this principle remembering the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland, where the automatons, the pirates, and the dog, and the others, and the villagers are just robots acting out their behaviors in accordance with their instrumentation and their mechanisms. And I think that we are the same way. They're much more complex, but in the base element of it all, we're the same as those robots. Next comes the principle of maturity. Maturity consists of wisdom, which is the experience of our past successes and failures, fortitude, to strive to do better and to avoid our mistakes again, and then the integrity that yields of living a life in accord with our values. The social principle comes next. We need each other. And the sub-principles here are diplomacy, justice, and conspiracy. Diplomacy is what we have to do to engage with others to come to an agreement about what constitutes right and wrong, and therefore justice. And then conspiracy is what we do when we work together to make those ends real. Next comes the principle of family. It's good to have a family. You can either make it a family that you of the traditional sense or a family of friends. Whatever the case, it's good to create one. It serves as a catalyst, which is the one sub-principle here, towards better living. Public speaking, that's next, and it has several sub-principles. Public speaking simply speaks to our communication, our ability to listen and communicate well. The sub-principles here are best words, to develop a deep and rich vocabulary and to use that vocabulary in select and appropriate manner to communicate our meaning in the best way possible. Literature, which is the ground from which we develop both our vocabulary and our rich substrate of understanding of the world. I say literature more than news, because literature is timeless. Prudence. Prudence is the ability to filter our communication through our values. Felicity, the ability to season our communication with our emotions. Eloquence, the practiced effort of speaking well and beautifully. And then rumor and gossip are the things to avoid. Temperance is next. Temperance is the first of several. There's a couple of principles here that go together and they form a whole. Temperance, life will not go well. The horror show, that which must be borne. That's it. Yeah, 4. Temperance is our ability to control our consumption of all things in life, work and play and food and drink and everything. The sub-principles here are suffering, because when we tell ourselves no, when we are being temperate and tell ourselves no, we suffer. Simplicity, because a temperate life is a simple life. And then apathy, the ability to control our emotional connection or even our reasoned connection with things that are beyond us. Apathy is a deeply important element here. To be apathetic towards the things that we cannot reach is a superpower of sorts. It comes from the Stoics, at least in that tradition. It's a key element, and I tend to borrow that for this as well. Life will not go well. That's the next principle here, is just a reminder that life is going to be tough. The horror show, the next principle. Sometimes it's going to be so tough as to be horrifying. That which must be borne. The fact that we have to bear the terror and bear the difficulty. The feast of offal, or the banquet of our suffering, is what happens when we let loose and we show our upset to the world and soil others. And I try to dearly not do that anymore. I used to do that. Get upset in front of my family. Don't do that anymore. I hold it in, and I find other ways to dissipate the energy and upset. Well, it doesn't come so much anymore, largely, because I'm more reasoned and more apathetic in my worldview, and I've tempered my expectations and my understanding. My expectation of life is better aligned with the reality of how the world really works. So it's not often, but not uncommon. I mean, it's not often, but not 100% without, that I get upset. That didn't come out right. You can get the idea. Next comes the principle of distraction. This is the first of a twofer. Distraction, and then agency and the great indifference. Distraction is, simply put, distraction is what we do in our work, in our play, in our school, in our politics, in our church, and our God, so that we don't have to see that the universe is empty and devoid of supernatural agency looking after us. We are on our own. So we don't want to see that. The next comes the best seat in the house, to be all right with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing. Then here comes another one. This is a 3-fer, I think, or maybe a 4-fer. Let's see. The restless man, 3-fer. The restless man, the path of wildness, the great life adventure. It is a 4-fer, because the next one after that is the risk of avoiding risk. It's a 4-fer. The path of the restless man is that feeling that we have, man or woman, usually starts in around our teens and goes through our 20s, that we want to have an adventure in life. And if we do something about that, we step upon the path of wildness, the next principle, which is the way forward and through new life, so to speak, in the course of our one life. The great life adventure, the next principle, is the yield and the gain of that effort, the thing that comes of stepping upon the path of wildness, of heeding the restlessness that we feel. The risk of avoiding risk speaks to the consequence of not listening to that voice and of suppressing it. It'll likely haunt us all of our lives. Or the other consequence of going too far and never settling down with society and family and taking on the responsibilities of a deeper life. You can have a rather shallow trophy case of wins in life without much depth, hollow, gold and silver looking sparkles, prizes, that's the word, without the depth. The trick is to go midway, to find a way to have both. It's a tricky thing to do. Good luck. Next comes sin and damnation. In my worldview, there are 8 sins that basically constitute living poorly. The resultant consequence is damnation in the here and now. These sins are falsity, being untrue; credulity, believing things too readily; faith, belief founded upon belief, which is nonsense; superstition, more nonsense; dogma, belief founded upon tradition; authority, belief founded upon high office, impressive appearance or charisma, anything like that. And then the 2 things that are not related to belief or being untrue are, again, rumor and gossip. Engaging in those things are nasty things to do, and all of these things result in a damnation of sorts in the here and now. And it piles up, and it can get pretty bad in your 50s if you live that long. If you pile on all those sins, you can live in sort of a hell, unfortunately. The next principle is called complete oblivion. After life, if there is no soul and there is no God, there is no heaven, and there is no final circumstance and reckoning, then there'll be no final reunion with the ones we love, no chance of a final reconciliation, and no final justice. All of these things need to be attended to in this one life that we get. The season of philosophy is the next principle. It speaks to the recommendation to keep a pen and paper handy for when the words come in life, because when they come, they tend to fade quickly, and you get that one chance to write them down. The next are a twofer: script writing and the bullseye aim. Script writing is what we can do to forecast for in the minutes, hours, days ahead how we're going to handle challenging circumstances and opportunity. Whereas bullseye aim, this principle simply reminds us to be prepared for things to not go our way. That's not quite it. Literally, I got that from the game of darts, where a reasonable, mature human being playing darts doesn't rail at the heavens whenever they miss the bullseye. They expect that. They try, but they expect that. They expect they're going to be off base. They get excited when they hit a strike, a bullseye. So they're reasonable about their misses, and they're excited about their hits. That's the way we should be in life as well. Reasonable about our misses, and excited and happy about our hits. Not railing, as I said, against the misses and just settling on the hits is something that are expected. They're exceptional. The uphill climb, finishing each day higher and further along the mountain climb of life. There's more to that than that, but it just basically simply means to not rest very much, but to keep the backpack on and climbing. Arena and utility. Life is this arena, and we're like gladiators. We can have these tools, these principles at our side. They're ready to help us out. Us too. Nothing is enough to be satisfied with less or nothing at all. There's a heavy one there if you can go down that road, and I'm trying. Haven't really done it in earnest yet, but that'll be one of the efforts that I engage in when I retire soon. And then comes the principle of fun, and the sub-principles of hope and retrospect. The pleasure and the enjoyment of hoping for better, hoping for what we dream about, hoping for what we're striving for, and the pleasure of retrospect and looking back, not to mention the deep pleasure of the here and now, even on a Monday, even on a day of work. That's my good life creed in my book, Going Alone. Available on Amazon, or you can click on, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can click on the link below. You'll get a signed copy there. Amazon, you don't get a signed copy. Anyway, that's it. So today is a Monday, like I said, lots of work ahead. I've got this all down. I'll do this day. I'm ready to make it a good, productive day, a day of continued adult forward motion, taking care of my family, taking care of my responsibilities, contributing to my society, being a man of virtue, or striving for that effort, at that end at least. That's it. I wish you all the best. Be safe, but not too safe. And with that, my life is done, if not finished. See ya.